there, groove hackers. In today's bass lesson, I am going to give you my favorite shape to use on bass over minor chords. We'll talk about where the shape comes from and why it works. I'm going to give you two different examples as we go to show you how I might use this to create a groove along to a drum beat or to an existing song. I'm going to start us off today by showing you the minor scale and also the minor 7 arpeggio. Now, the shape I'm going to show you today should work theoretically almost all the time on any minor chord. So it's a minor 7 shape. We're going to add that minor 7 in there, but you don't need to have the 7 in the actual chord for this to work. This works equally well on just about any minor chord, as long as the band is playing a minor chord. Disclaimer, don't play this over major chords. So here's my minor scale, and of course I think of these in numbers. Compared to the major scale, I have 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and 8. For my minor 7 chord, I'm going to extract the 1, 3, 5, and 7 from that. So the 1, the flat 3, the 5, the flat 7, and then again the 8 is the same as my 1, which I could also call my root. I'm going to go ahead and I was starting my minor scale on with my first finger. I'm going to pull that back to my 4th finger, and we're going to be in this position for the entire shape. So now my 1 is here. And if I think about where everything else is, I don't really have access to the 1, 3, 5, and 7 that I had before. So we're going to get those in different places. The 3rd, here's my 3rd here. Well, if I go over and back 5 frets, I end up here. This is a G in this case, 5th fret. So I have this G here as my 3rd. Well, that G is also back there. So if I have my 1 here, I've got my 3rd back here. Now my 5th was up here. 1, 3, and 5. This is 1, this is 5. So my 5th, I'm going to go ahead and drop down by an octave. This is my octave shape, so 2 frets back and 2 strings down. So if this is my 5th, this is also my 5th. I could call it the 5th below. If this is my root, this is my 5th below the root. So back to my 4th finger here, I've got my 1, my flat 3 above, my 1 again, and then my 5 below. The only thing left to add is a 7. So if I go up to here, this is my octave of my root. Well, this was my flat 7. So again, octave shape, and that is my 7 below my root in this case. So back to my position, I have 1, flat 3, 1, flat 7 below, and then 5 below. Another way to think about where that flat 7 is if I'm at my root, doesn't matter this is a 1 or an 8, 1 and 8, same thing, it's just a matter of perspective. If this is my root, my flat 7 should be a whole step or 2 frets down from the root. So again, here's my root, here's my 2 frets back, and that gives me my flat 7, just a different way to think about the same thing. The math always works out. It always works out. Not all of these notes are created equally. The root, especially for the bass, especially as a bass player playing any kind of traditional music, your root is your foundation. That is your obligation. That's what's expected of you. So you're usually going to lead a new chord, or maybe coming into a bar line, you're usually going to lead that with the root. That is your most stable note. And just like you might have friends, that some of your friends are maybe more stable than others, and some of them are maybe there for you all the time, and maybe some of them aren't, that root is your best friend. So when you have the E minor chord or an E minor 7 chord, the E is our go-to. That's where we go for stability. We're going to want to spend most of our time there. The 5th is the next most stable. That's that friend that's sort of usually there for you, but maybe not all the time. Maybe it's not your first phone call, but it can definitely be your second. So that 5th, that's your next best friend. So the 3rd and the 7th, I'm going to say are, to my ears, pretty equal. I don't want to hang out there for a real long time, but they're very friendly notes. I can definitely rely on them to be very groovy and to provide me with some cool sounds that'll go along with these chords. Now, having said that, knowing that your root is your most reliable, stable note and that your 5th is a very close second, you can pretty much travel around this shape in a minor 7 chord, and it's usually going to sound pretty okay. The idea here is for me to give you something that you can play around with without having a ton of work going into it. Just one simple shape that's going to work really well on minor or minor 7 chords. Okay, I'm going to put some drums on now. I'm going to give myself 4 clicks to come in. I'm going to play for 8 bars. I'm going to play 4 bars of the E minor shape, and then I'll move it up a string. Moving the exact same shape up one string will give me an A minor shape. So I'm just going to show you how this shape can travel around. If I'm on the E minor chord, then my E minor is 1, and I'm basing everything on that. If I'm on the A minor chord, then my A is 1, and I'm going to base everything on that. So I'm going to do 4 bars of E minor, 2 bars of A minor, and 2 bars of E minor just to give you some variety. And my promise to you, my promise is that I'm only going to use those 4 notes in that exact octave that I showed you from this one shape. And I'm just going to keep myself bound to that and see how it sounds. I'm going to see what I can get going with that one shape. Again, I'm going to move it for the A minor chord, but other than that, based on each chord, I'm only using the one shape. Okay, that was just one shape played over 2 different chords, so played in 2 different spots. I move the shape around as needed as the chords change, of course. But that's just one shape, 4 notes. I thought it sounded cool. Okay, now we're going to do 2 things. We're going to add a note, because we have more notes available. Let's go ahead and add a note, shall we? And we're also going to look at using that note to actually connect us to a higher octave. So moving the shape, playing the same shape, just in a higher register, in a higher octave. So the note I'm going to add for you is number 4. Here's the guideline. Just like a minor 7 sounds good on pretty much any minor chord, a 4 on a minor chord also almost always is a very, very good choice. So when I start getting into 2s and 6s, which is really the only 2 notes left out of our 7, I need to know more about my key. I need to either understand modes or understand the key that I'm in, or possibly the mode that I'm in order to really make decent choices. So my goal today for you, again, was to get you playing right away on minor chords without too much theory behind it, just minimal amount of theory. So I bestow upon you the right to play 4s on minor chords. Okay, back to the bass, back to the minor scale. I've got 1, 2, flat 3, and 4. My 4 is right there. So I can think of this as being the string above my my root. There you go. So if I'm back in my box shape here, I've got the 1 and the flat 3 and the 4. So I can use that in a lot of different ways. I've got it right here above the 3. I've also got it below the 5. If we look at, here's my 4, here's my 4 as well. That's the octave below. It's a 4 below. So here's my root, here's my 5. I've got my 4 here. These are really nice, what we call neighboring tones. So if I'm on the 1, the 3, I can go up to the 4 and back. And it kind of, it's like you go to the 3 and then you go away and come back real quick. That's like a neighboring tone. That is a neighboring tone. So I can use it like that. I can use it down below as well on my 5. So just some different ways to use it. But what we're going to do today is we're going to use this 4 not just as a neighboring tone, but we're going to use it to connect to a higher octave. So again, my shape is based on the 4th finger on the root note. Well, I've got that here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and move that up. That's my octave of my root, still an E in my E minor chord. And I'm going to go ahead and use as much of that shape as I can. Now, I've only got a 4-string bass here. This will work on any number of strings, but I've run out of strings on my 3rd. My 3rd would be here. So if I had a 5 or a 6 string with a C string on it, I could play that 3rd up there. Don't have that available, so I'll just take what I have down below. So I still have my octave, my 7 below, and my 5 below. And when linked, it looks like this. And I just kind of slid into that. You can do that any number of ways. So there's a little bit of a run where I can get outside of that little shape. I can have a little bit more creative expression, a little bit more arc to my melodic function on the instrument, and I can use my notes up here, use that same shape up here. Now, after you've learned the shape and after you've added the fourth and maybe you've taken it up an octave and you've got the pattern in a couple of different spots, you're feeling really good about it, I want to empower you to play any of these notes anywhere on your instrument, regardless of the shape. So we can start to break out of this shape. This is the next frontier. After you're really comfortable, after you're creating some cool grooves, using the box shape, maybe in a couple locations, we can really play any of these notes anywhere, which begs the question, what are the notes that I'm playing? These are the notes that I'm playing. My 1 is an E. My 3 is a G. Go down to my flat 7, that's a D. Go down here, that is my 5th, that's a B. And my 4th, if I want to add the 4th, is an A. Okay, so bass player, can you think of anywhere where you have an E, the root note that maybe you haven't played before today or that I haven't played before today? I was thinking my open E. There's other answers to that question, of course, but the open E is kind of an obvious low-hanging fruit there, right? It's just there to be plucked and devoured. So if I have my little riff, you hear that low E I'm dropping in there. So that's certainly available. And if I want to just change positions and really bust out of the fretboard here, or bust out of my shape here, I've got my G right here, 3rd fret on the E string. That's a G. That's my, what is that? That's my flat 3rd. Ooh, yay. I've got a flat 3rd available down there. And if I move up, I've got the 4. Now I'm back in position here, the 5, the flat 7, the 1. I could even do a little run. So now we'll do one more groove together. I'm going to just stick to the E minor chord this time, just one chord solid, just having a ton of fun for 8 bars on one chord. We're going to up the tempo a little bit. It was at 90 before. We're going to crank it up to 120. Got a new drum beat for us just to keep things fresh. I mean, why not, right? And this is my promise to you now. I'm going to use my shape I originally used. I'm going to take that up an octave. I'll use the shape up there. I'm going to add the 4, and I'm also going to add any other chord tones or the 4th wherever I want to. So E's and G's and A's and B's and D's, wherever I want, with the priority, understanding the priority is root note is my obligation, the 5th is my next most dependable, and then I can move outside from there. That's all I'm going to use. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to go outside of these exact parameters that I've laid down for us. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, here it comes. That's cool. I like that. So there you go. That's the secret sauce. That is how I like to teach my bass players to groove along to a minor chord or a minor 7 chord. Looks like Bob's getting up. Sorry, distracted. And have it sound good. Just right out of the gate. Just some easy notes that are going to sound good in most styles of music. I do give private lessons, and yes, you can schedule a free consultation with me on my website via Zoom. And I'll see you here back in the studio for our next lesson. My bass is not working. To link is